The Thursday morning of the 6th week of Easter. This is a key move. Paul is in Athens. So you got to see, it's the center of culture. Really the center of culture, more so than Rome. This is where genius really was present. It was the schoolroom of Europe, the cultural schoolroom of Europe. Paul left Athens, went to Corinth. Corinth was also a center of learning and power, but it was also known for the Corinthian power. There he met a Jew named Aquila, a native of Pontus, who had recently come from Italy with his wife Priscilla, because Claudius had ordered all Jews to leave Rome. See the events of history, how the church will evolve through the events of history. He went to visit them, and because he practiced the same trade, they were tent makers, he stayed with them and worked. So Paul's working for a living now, for they were tent makers by trade. See? He had to do something. He said, I got to maybe make a buck. Every Sabbath, he entered into discussion in the synagogue, attempting to convince both Jews and Greeks. You can see now the globalization taking place. When Silas and Timothy came down from Macedonia, Paul began to occupy himself totally with the preaching of the word, testifying to Jews that Christ was Jesus. Now watch what happens. When they opposed him and reviled him, he shook out his garments and he said to them, your blood be on your own heads. I'm out of here. I am clear of responsibility. From now on, I will go to the Gentiles. So he left there and went to a house belonging to a man named Titus Justus, a worshiper of God. His house was next to the synagogue. Crispus, the synagogue official, came to believe in the Lord, along with his entire household. And many of the Corinthians who heard believed and were baptized. And they became powerful. The letter to the Corinthians, one of the great sources of revelation, Christian revelation, you see. You don't get a letter to the Athenians, you have a letter to the Corinthians. And compared to the Athenians, they were a motley crew. They had their geniuses, though. They wasn't completely, but it was Corinth, as I remember, as I understand it, a sea town. They were tough. They were tough guys. Athenians were effete. They were smart, brilliant, educated, elegant people. The Corinthians, as far as I know, as far as I remember, and any of the things I've ever studied, were tough ass. They were tough guys. There was longshoremen. They worked on the docks, as it were, but they also had an intellectual tradition there. I don't want to knock it completely. I could be wrong and eat crow over it. I don't want to. But I have to say, I hope my interpretation is right in the sense that if I've got it right, the Corinthians were rough and tough, but they're the ones who embraced the gospel. If you want my experience of the waterfront, okay, well, granted, I grew up on the East Coast, but where I really experienced it, okay, was in New York when I was stationed in New York back 60 years ago. My classmate Jim Laurie, who ended up leaving the outfit just that year, I guess. Jim and a couple of us, Joe Sedley. Joe was stationed in Pittsburgh. He's my oldest friend in the outfit. He and Terry Christofak. We go back a long time. But Joe and Jim and myself, we liked to go down to the docks. So we would go from the monastery, whether we were stationed in New York or across the river in Union City, New Jersey, hopscotch across. We would go to the docks and walk on the docks, go down to the docks. And these were ocean liners, okay? Ocean liners for either freighters or ocean liners. And we would walk among them, and you'd see all the dock workers. You'd see, these are not gentle souls. These are rough and tough guys, okay? They had a tough world. But that's the world that Paul and Silas and the gang, that's the ones they want to preach to. And they're the one who listened. They were the ones who listened. You know what you saw there? I'll show you something. I'll give you something. I just remembered it. You would see nuns sitting there begging, okay? They'd be in their habits. They would be sitting on these docks. Now, they're not like a little dock. These are massive, okay? You have to be in the ocean to see it. Ocean liners, okay? You're sitting next to the USS whatever. You get it? You'd see these nuns. And what these dock workers and ship hands, whatever these guys are, sailors, I'm talking about that. The people who lived and worked on the docks, who lived on the boats, etc., and the ships. They would come by and drop a few bucks in that basket. The nuns were begging. They didn't have to say anything, just sit there in their habits with a basket. The money poured in. And I'd say, the truth is, if there was anybody on earth that was safe, it was those nuns. I don't care if they had $1 million in that basket. No one would even breathe something towards them, or let alone try to take the money from them. They wouldn't last long enough. Those women were totally safe. I mean, totally. Those guys were tough, and they loved those nuns. There was no way anything could ever happen to them. I love that stuff. I love that. To me, that's the real world. You gotta know it. It isn't polite. It's not pretty. It's beautifully powerful, I guess, in its own way. These simple sisters, they were sitting there all day begging. God knows how much money they took back to the convent, but how safe they were. Why? If there were 500 dock workers there, or whatever you call them, stevedores and all the rest, there were 500 sets of eyes on them to protect them. They were not going to be bothered. If you walked up to them, you better be dropping some money in that basket. You better not be giving them a hard time, let alone try to take it from them. They're not going to happen. They'll find you in the bottom of the Atlantic. I'm not joking. I'm dead serious. You had to see it. They had to see it. I admire that. I guess I do. Not only the courage of the nuns and all the rest, but that kind of corporate faith that those men had. They believed in the church, they believed in the nuns, and they did it in a very simple and direct way. They dug in their pockets and threw a $5 bill in the basket. See? That's neat. They may not even been Catholic, let alone Christian, whatever. I don't know. I just know what I saw. And I saw it a lot because Jim Laurie and Joe Sedley and others, we used to go down there all the time. Sometimes we were able to get on the boats. Not often. We'd sometimes been able to sneak on, or somebody would sneak us on, And we like to get on the boats, It was part of the fun of living in New York, was to go down to the docks. Boy, you saw life down there. I appreciated my New York experience. I don't ever want to live there again, but I saw such a combination of life. I saw the wealthy and the poor on the same street in the same place. See? You could see a beggar on the street, and you could see a person walk by and who was obviously a very middle class or above. You see? That's New York. That is New York. And I appreciate it. It was a long time ago, over 50 years ago that I was there. But I never forgot it, and I appreciated it. But I never wanted to live it again. I didn't even want to live in New York again. I wanted to live in an open place. I didn't realize at the time how, I don't know, it was a sad time in my life in many ways, I guess. I wasn't happy there. I didn't know I was until I got away. When I went to Baltimore, I just got out in the woods and I started to, I don't know, it was a different experience, but I'm glad I had lived in New York. I'm glad I had lived in a New York experience. But I didn't, even running the subway, you see humanity there. And if you got to the seat first, it making a difference. You're a billionaire or a pauper. You got there first, you sat. That's the truth. It was humanity riding the train. Great, powerful symbol of life, actually. Yeah. Anyway, I'm just chatting with you this morning. I hope you're doing all right. Just reflecting, kind of remembering those New York days. Although when there was a possibility of me going back there to teach at St. John's, I guess this was 20, 30 years ago, I thought, oh God, no, please, not New York. Not now. It's too late. I don't want to ever go back there. I don't even like taking the bus through there or train. I don't want to live like that. I remember you saying, nobody should live like this. I want an open air. I want to be able to see the sky, not a skyscraper. I want to see the sky. I want to breathe fresh air. I want to go where the birds and the animals are free, not the zoo. That's the truth. You have a good one, gang. Have a good day.